Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sustainability in Business and Innovations panel discussion. So welcome to AIESEC and AIESEC and Alumni Australia's event. Today, before we begin, in spirit of reconciliation, AIESEC acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and the community. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. So welcome everyone to our space. Welcome to all students from AIESEC in Monash, as well as welcome to all business workers here today, and welcome to our special panelists here today. So before we begin, we wanted to just talk a little bit more about sustainability and why it is becoming more and more important. So sustainable development is to make the world a better place for everyone without destroying the possibility for the next generations. We think of, can we do this over and over again forever and keep us sustainable? And the United Nations created the Sustainable Development Goals as blueprints to achieve for a better future and more sustainable future. AIESEC, alongside the many panelists, businesses here today, are striving towards that achievement to gain in 2030. And the relevancy in this for youth is that 62% of executives actually consider that sustainability strategy is necessary to be competitive today. Another 22 believe the same for the future. And the relevancy for this for business owners already in the field is that according to a 2016 study, 64% of millennials won't take the job of a company unless they have a strong social responsibility practices. And that's something really to consider, meanwhile, during the panel here today. So just some housekeeping rules before we begin is to always be present and respect the space. To keep your cameras on, because we really do want this to be an interactive experience for both the panelists and the audience here today. And to remember to unmute yourself before speaking and stay muted if you're not speaking, just to avoid background noise. We also do want everyone to be proactive here today, as we will be having a question and answer section. And we're more than happy to hear from the panelists as well as the questions that you have for us today. As well as that, question and answer will be done through Slido. So what we will be doing is we have this link for you. So if you go onto slido.com and put in the numbers #84022 throughout the session, depending on what the panelists say, you are more than welcome to actually give us questions to answer. It's in the link in the chat below. Spidey has just shared it with you guys, and feel free to submit any questions at any time. And during the Q&A section, we will be more than happy to answer all your questions. So the agenda for today is that the opening, so we've just finished with our opening and we'll be moving towards our Sustainability in Business and Innovation panel. We'll then transition to our Q&A session and have a final closing with any announcements and any fun stuff that we have coming next. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Sharon Natoli, Founding Director of Food and Nutrition Australia. So Sharon, please feel free to introduce yourself and unmute.
Thank you, Selena, and hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight and to, I guess, share some of my learnings and some of my insights from my working career to date. I am, yes, the Founding Director of Food and Nutrition Australia, and it's a business that I started, it's 23 years ago now. It could even be older maybe than some of you. So I'd call that a sustainable business just because we've been in it for the long haul. But when I look back at my career, I guess my professional qualifications are in food and nutrition, but also I've got a graduate diploma in business. And so food and the food sector and business have been the two areas that I've really worked in over this past, really the 30 years of my career to date. And so when I think about my experience, it really falls into three buckets. It's the food and nutrition part, it's the business and leadership part, but it's also the connection and communications part. And what I'm really passionate about doing now is really looking at, well, how can I use my skills and work with my clients and the people that I know in the food sector to really nourish the future using food as a lever to do that, because food really is a powerful lever that we have to inspire a better future that's in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals that Selena just talked about, and which I know you're all very familiar with. And so one of the ways I do that now is I host an initiative called the Virtual Lunchroom. So that's to provide leaders and organisations with a platform to share their stories of change and how they are creating a better future. One of those being Farmwall. And so it's great to have Geert as one of the panellists today, who has a lot of expertise and passion in this area as well. But I also recognise that sharing stories of change is just one thing we can do to inspire a better future, and that we also need team cultures that are really able to collaborate and connect and work with speed to create that better future through business. So I've been looking at that in terms of research around my next book, which is all around how can we use food within our businesses and how can we use the ritual of eating together to really create that connection in team culture. And so I'm really excited about that as I guess another way that we can really create and nourish the future. So I'll probably talk a little bit about that later on, but that's me in a nutshell.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sharon. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And I'm so interested in all the things that you have to share about the food industry as well. And the next panelist we have is Samir Jacobs, Global Marketing Manager of Clinigy. So Samir, please introduce yourself and unmute.
Thanks, Selena, and it's definitely a pleasure to be here. So glad I get the opportunity to kind of almost give back to AIESEC. As you can see, I'm an AIESEC alumnus, was OCP for various conferences back in my home LC in Chennai. And I went to do 2 traineeships through the AIESEC program. Within my expertise, when I jump into any particular brand, and I have been within the renewables industry for the last 10 years, it's invariably revolved around almost 3 subjects. Either it's an overseas enterprise that's looking to venture into Australia, and so it's taking their global marketing strategy and then customizing it down to the local audience, or from a digital transformation perspective, where we're actually building up a marketing team and all the digital assets that go with that. That is the content management tools, the customer relationship management programs. If your product is connected to the internet and you do remote monitoring, how all of those platforms tie in together to a business intelligence tool to give the leadership team complete visibility across the business. And lastly would be using social media channels as growth platforms. So in Ravi, that's most of what my core work is, which a lot of that I learned at when I did my MBA at University of West Australia, and did my master's in marketing at ECU and NWA as well. Today I work at Clinigy, where I kind of implement all those programs. Clenergy is, I'd say, a very innovative manufacturer within the renewable energy space, and what they produce is solar racking. Now, a lot of people might not know what racking is, and it's basically, if you would think about a painting and the frame that goes around the painting, same thing with a solar panel. All the nuts and bolts that help you fasten those panels to the roof or to the ground is what Clinigy manufactures. If you see those large solar trackers that that can like follow the sun, we manufacture those as well. So very heavily within the renewable energy space, and a lot of our corporate social responsibility programs follow the UN Sustainable Goals as well. So that's me in a little nutshell as well. So yeah, thank you, Selena.
Thank you so much, Samir. It's such a great honor to have also an AIESEC alumni be a part of this panelist as well, and very much interested in hearing more about the renewable energy side of sustainability. And definitely last but not least, we have Geert, Hendrix, founder and CEO of Farmwall. So welcome to the space, Geert, and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone, and yeah, thank you for having me on the panel. It's an absolute privilege. So yeah, looking forward to the upcoming discussion. I'm coming in from the startup angle. So Farmwall, we've been around for about 3.5 years now, on a mission to transform our cities into food-producing ecosystems. So as Sharon, we believe that food is absolutely crucial into our future development, and bringing food more into our day-to-day living environments and into our day-to-day activities is great. It's a great way to increase our well-being and our overall happiness in our day-to-day living environments. So yeah, at Farmwall we've been on a mission to integrate food production into office spaces and into our homes, but also to really engage people in the act of growing food and increase the value of the food produced through experience and through education. And we're doing it through developing, on one end, the hardware technology, the actual growing systems that are required to bring that experience, but then also the content and the online delivery of that in a community perspective, and into an educational delivery perspective. COVID has been quite interesting for us, where we had to make a few changes to our offering and really take it from the office floor to people's homes and to people's home offices. It's been a really interesting exercise for us to do that in such a short time frame, and we've learned a lot over the last couple of months. And as Sharon mentioned before as well, team culture and overall engagement for the remote workforce is becoming more prominent. So we're currently looking at how our Farmwall Home program can actually deliver larger outcomes when it's brought in a corporate cohort. So we're having a lot of fun. We're really excited about what the future can bring from a food growing perspective, and how food in general, like the growing and the sharing and the eating of it together can actually increase the value towards the sustainable development goals. And actually, if our perspectives and our paradigms change on how we grow and consume our food, hopefully that will have a positive impact on the environment and the social outcomes as well.
Definitely. Thank you.
Are my Slack alarms coming through?
Just a little bit, but that's totally fine. But thank you so much, Geert, for your introduction, and very excited to hear more about your startup perspective as well as the home growing perspective as well. So here today we have Sharon, Samir, and Geert, who are all experts in their own field. And this is a point where we will stop sharing and we'll actually start our panel discussion with everyone. So hopefully everyone has their cameras on and we can make this a more proactive space. Cool. So perfect. With the first question, given the ever-changing world that we live in now, many businesses and organizations nowadays are incorporating more sustainable initiatives to their plans. And in your perspective, what are the drivers behind this shift? So I think as Geert was talking about the changes with COVID, could you share some insights on this statement? Just about sustainability initiatives.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure, no worries.
I was turning off my Slack and making sure that notifications were no longer in the background. My apologies.
Oh, good. So as I was saying, many businesses and organizations nowadays are incorporating sustainable initiatives into their plans. And in your perspective, what are the drivers behind this shift?
There's quite a few drivers. I think the largest drivers are the consumer and the employee. I think from a consumer based role, starting to make better choices towards products that have social and environmental outcomes. As a consumer and a single individual, we often feel like we can't do a lot, and that our power lays within the choice we make on a day-to-day with the products we decide to buy. So organizations are seeing that like being more sustainable actually has a commercial value. So that's definitely increasing that on one end. On the other end, the people within the organizations who are more the employees themselves who make the decisions. Their values are changing more towards sustainability as well. So when you've got a larger amount of people within an organization that are sustainably minded, naturally the organization will start steering towards that as well. And then attracting talent, I think you've mentioned it before, is that there's a higher demand from future talent. They want to have a feeling of purpose and work for organizations that are actually going to drive towards a better world. And so we've got a choice about where we work and where we spend our money, and organizations together with governments are starting to implement that more and more into their day-to-day general
definitely.
Practices.
Thank you, Geert, for that insight. I totally agree, especially with the statistics that we've also shared today. And we also wanted the insights from Sharon as well, especially being in the industry for 30 years. I'm sure you have a lot of insights about the drivers behind this shift.
Yeah, I must be really old, huh?
Not at all.
So I agree with what Geert said, definitely. I mean, I sort of talk about there's the rise of the more conscious consumer. And I guess if we just asked everybody to put your hand up, who's more conscious about how they're spending their money? Like if we just did a quick, most of us, and I guess we're definitely a biased sample, but yeah, so the rise of the conscious consumer, more conscious about how we're spending our money and feeling that we have power around that to make change. So that kind of transferred to us feeling personally that we can make a difference. And there's also the evolution of the ethical investor, so that ethical investment sort of side of things as well. And so for companies to be able to demonstrate that they are doing things responsibly, sustainably, there's a business benefit to that if they're looking to attract investment. So there's those two things. And as Geert mentioned as well, people are looking to work for companies that are able to offer them a place where they feel as though they're making a difference and they're having that purpose and meaning to their work. And so those three things together, it makes sense that therefore we're seeing really purpose-driven businesses are the ones that are doing really well. So there's really no separation anymore between that, purpose and profit, money and meaning, that they're inextricably linked. And so I guess as leaders, we're talking to future leaders, or, we're all leaders in a way, that there's no separation between those two things. And so that's really so it's a good time to be looking at sustainability and to really be looking at how can we incorporate that more into our businesses, because it's a driver of future success.
Yeah, definitely. I highly agree with everything that you've said. And speaking of the higher the society expectations for corporate to be like more responsible and the rise of conscious consumer, what then do you think are the challenges businesses are facing currently as a result, Sharon?
Yeah, sorry, and that was my dog just barking. I've got the door closed and no one else is home. So I think the challenges are consistently going to be, and this is part of human nature, that we tend to, we're tempted by short-term gains over striving for long-term, value and long-term outcomes. And, even think about that when in, over time, sort of in the food sector, we say, well, I want to lose weight, but then someone will put a piece of cake in front of us and we'll go, oh, well, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. So we sort of put off the long-term aim of losing weight for the short-term gain or pleasure of eating the cake. So it's human nature to kind of go for that. I guess that's that short-term profit over that long-term, creating that long-term sustainable value. So that's something, I guess, as humans and as future leaders, that's I guess potentially a barrier, but something that we need to work with. So that's one thing. And I also think that, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is businesses leading change. So not just following, but what can we do to actually step forward and take more responsibility? And to do that is like looking at I guess in the past, leaders and I guess managers were kind of stuck in an office looking at spreadsheets. And I think now we need our leaders to kind of get out and have a voice and to share a perspective. And so having a perspective, you know, knowing what the vision is, and the great thing about the Sustainable Development Goals is that they give us that vision. We don't need to spend time thinking about, well, where do we want to go? We know where we want to go. It's taking action to get there. And so we need leaders that can communicate in an inspiring and compelling way. And so that's something that I'm quite passionate about too, and sort of, you know, creating that platform or having leaders step out of the office, away from the spreadsheet, and out and share a perspective. So there will be a couple of things. And then of course, you know, making sure that we're working on team culture as part of that movement forward, because it's easy to kind of focus on, I guess, the operating system of the business, you know, the kind of, you think about a computer operating system, you know, it's kind of black and white, it's working or it's not. If it's not, you ring the tech person and they'll fix it. The human operating system of a business, really much more messy, much more challenging. But we know that culture is 7 times more influential on business performance than strategy. And so that being able to, I guess, bring forward or elevate and nurture the human qualities of a business, that's really important too. And that, I think, can sometimes, well, there's often a barrier. You know, how many times do you hear someone say, oh, you know, I didn't get along with this person at work, and so it kind of distracts us, it slows us down, and we've got to work with speed. You know, we've only got 10 years to realize the Sustainable Development Goals with that 2030 kind of time frame. So
yep.
You know, how can we work together, you know, taking up Sustainable Development Goal number 17, develop partnerships and collaborate to realize the intent that the Sustainable Development Goals. We've really got to be able to get along and create those cultures that are going to get us there.
Yeah, definitely. It's so great to have you and Samir and Geert as well as leaders sharing your experiences with us. And on that, I also wanted to get insights from Samir as well, from a marketing perspective. I'm sure there are definitely a lot of challenges in businesses about like the conscious consumer, especially when you're working with renewable energy.
A lot of what Geert and Sharon has kind of resonated with myself, especially the points on when you have prospective talent trying to look saying when people say you can choose your friends, and when it comes to companies, you can choose a company you're more aligned with in terms of your own personal values, and that's why it's so important for all different platforms illustrate their core values, their core vision on where they want to go and where they want to take the business, and what kind of initiatives that they're doing that aligns with that vision. For example, so Clinigy, where the renewable industry, we're primarily solar world, and so all the initiatives of that. So, for example, we partnered with a couple of universities, one in Malaysia, University of Queensland here in Australia, one in Japan, all of which who were competitors in the World Solar Challenge. There's a solar race that happens from Darwin to Adelaide. And they promote solar, they also promote electric vehicles. So for us, it kind of ticks all the boxes. We also get engaged with a lot of universities and students, and to the society, helping students grow and learn new technology.
Sorry, Samir, I think you're cutting off a little bit.
Sharon, you were...
Sorry, you're just cutting off a little bit. Just maybe put your mouth closer to your mic, maybe.
Oh yeah, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think that's better. Yep, but sure, definitely continue.
Okay, sorry. Sustainability within the team and your staff morale, especially during this COVID period. At the moment right now with Clinigy, we're looking at initiating our own little webinar kind of panel discussion around mental illness within our industry, sort of medium-sized businesses, you know, sole traders who are, I guess, suffering in this period. To help and give insights of how they could alleviate that kind of stress. So from a branding perspective, I feel as long as whatever initiative you are going to implement is in line with your core values, it's going to fit and align with, I guess, the employee of tomorrow. The only unfortunate thing is solar, because it's mechanical, because it's a physical product, commercial deals or commercial projects, there is a ROI always attached to it. What is the return on our investment? But you know, when you look at when we explain the commercial properties, I mean, you're going to be renting a building for 5 to 10 years. A renewable energy project, after that, it's just basically free electricity. So that's one thing you can do on your own. Apart from that, as consumers today, yeah, we buy our electricity from Energy Australia, AGL, all the usual consumer brands. As electricity companies like ERM or Flow Power that provide electricity to commercial properties, and you can actually identify with them and say that I want my power to be 50% renewable or 75% or even 100%. So today, a lot of businesses in Australia have that power to make sure that you know, where they source their energy from, it comes from sustainable renewable means.
Yep, definitely. Thank you for your insights, Samir. I think you were cut off a bit, but definitely like talking about ROIs and the way that we brand based on our business, our values, I think is definitely very important. And moving on to that, what kinds of initiatives then are you guys also doing to overcome and respond to the demand of sustainability? So which tools are you using to evaluate the actual effectiveness of these initiatives? Because I'm sure that the innovations can be very difficult to come on with. So I think especially Geet as a startup, that's definitely something that you do a lot. So could we have some insights on that? I think you're still muted, Geet, sorry.
Sorry. It's 5:30, my attention span.
No worries.
Decreasing. Yeah, so no, absolutely. As a startup, we're always at the front line of innovation, I guess, and pioneering and listening to the markets together with what we've been going through for the last couple of years, validating that offering is crucial. So, and yeah, currently from a sustainability perspective, there's a much bigger need for tools and programs that can measure according to the Sustainable Development Goals. So the corporate organizations are starting to work with them at a very increased speed. So they're looking for the right tools and the right sustainability measures that are measurable towards that. How are we doing that at the moment? So our program delivers specific value towards towards well-being and good health and well-being, and towards quality education. So we're not only innovating our actual system and our program, but we're also trying to innovate on how we're going to measure the outcomes back towards the goals and towards the corporate measurement frameworks, which have in the past mostly be the ESG measurement indicators. So yeah, innovation, very important, and from our perspective, we're now working on an urban farming program for the corporate space, in the past, and that's where I met Sharon. We did that through a collaboration with Mervik called Cultivate, and Cultivate was a pop-up urban farm, and that we set up at Westpac and one at Mervik themselves in Sydney, where we engage staff around healthy eating and nutrition and fresh food and growing your own food. Now we're taking that into the employees' home, basically. So we're actually going to engage employees by actually sending them the kits and the equipment to be able to grow their own food, to learn about urban agriculture, to learn about nutrition, and adding fresh greens to their lunches. It's never been done before from that perspective, so we're shaping that in the form of a pilot, as we did a pilot program for people at home a couple of months ago. This is again shaped in a pilot program where we can actually learn for the first time how it's going to work. As there's not a lot of data available of organizations that have done it in the past. So yeah, we've got to get out there and actually do it to be able to learn how to deliver that in a professional way in the future. So yeah, innovation towards sustainability from our point of view is key to deliver better outcomes and better drivers towards the goal.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Farmwall's definitely mission is just about incorporating more sustainability across the world, and it's so great to hear that you're adapting and transitioning it into like home farms as well. So thank you, Geert, for that. I also wanted to ask Sharon about the initiatives that you've made to respond to the demand of sustainability, especially after speaking about the 3 sectors that you're also working on as well.
Yeah, look, we know, like across the food sector, and I guess the fast-moving consumer goods sector, that products that talk about sustainability are outpacing, in terms of sales, it's the 5.6 times the growth of products that don't make those claims. What we need to be aware of is what's now called, greenwashing, which is making claims that aren't really, well substantiated. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on. But we actually, across the food sector, I worked with an intern recently who's studying sustainability, and we took the top 100 food and drink companies in Australia, which is from 2019. And we looked at how they were reporting, if they were reporting on sustainability. And it's just a sort of toe in the water sort of project. And so we looked at that websites and so public information around that. And we found that 87% of companies do mention sustainability in some way on their websites, for example. But less than 20% actually mention the Sustainable Development Goals. And so there's kind of a big gap, I guess, between perhaps a gap and an opportunity for making that bigger picture link that I think helps people to see that, from a food sector perspective, we know the things that people care about, and we can connect in with something that is developed and put out by the UN that makes it, I guess, more meaningful for people. So there seems to be from that project, and also my working with food companies and also research and development corporations and others, that awareness of the sustainable development goals in Australia is still relatively low, even in the food sector. Surprisingly, I think there's a real opportunity to really connect in with that a lot more than what's being done at the moment. But it's interesting to look at how do we report on that, and that there's not a lot of work in that area. So there's more to be done about, I guess, what is best practice to report on initiatives and actions around that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that insight. I think that is definitely something to consider in future as well. And I hope that more leaders are transitioning to doing more of that measuring. And for Samir, we also wanted to ask a bit more about sustainability in corporate branding. Since you are in charge of marketing, how well does that affect the perspective on consumers and the hiring prospects as well?
Yeah. First, can you hear me at the moment? Okay, great. I think for a lot of the solar industry is only 10 years old. So for us, it's actually been very easy to, I actually feel very privileged in terms of the world that I live in, because in my environment, everybody's kind of like a greenie, you know. So everyone wants to ride to work. Everybody wants to buy an electric car. Some already have electric cars. Most people who have their own home already have solar on their home. They want to get a wind turbine on. So a lot of the staff and the people who live and work in this industry reflect the values of the goals anyway. And when they go and meet various corporate enterprises, it just comes out naturally. What I've seen, I do a lot of like contract negotiations at work, and one of my I guess educational archives that I jump into for my own learning and how to be a better negotiator. I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and what I wanted to mention about Shark Tank is, I don't know if you can watch the show, but seasons now, probably the 11th one now, but in the 10th season onwards, there has been a massive change, because the normal formula when you look at VCs and enterprise starting up is X amount of equity, right? Whereas in the 10th season, I think it was Mark Cuban, and then you also had a few others jump on board, where every entrepreneur that was to arrive onto their show, they would ask them, okay, if I was taking dollars, I want this amount of equity, but I also want a small portion to go towards a not-for-profit cause or a sustainable cause that is linked to your brand, linked to your core work, linked to your vision, which is great. A program and investors of that level are able to it kind of translates down to everywhere else. Another example was, I think I just saw it on recently on Shark Tank Australia, where there's a guy from Byron Bay just wants to make sunglasses, but he specifically makes them out of timber. And he makes sure that the timber is ethically sourced. And there was something that he mentioned, which was he actually discontinued his most profitable product because the supplier, he found out through other means that the supplier wasn't ethical in terms of where they were sourcing. And that actually sparked even more interest from the investors. They said, we understand you have a dip in sales, but because of your principles, because of your values, I want to partner in terms of the shift in thinking. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I have not even been aware of that trend, and I think it's such an amazing trend to have people partnering up with charities that like go towards something that's more sustainable. And I think that's a great trend to highlight, Samir. So thank you for that insight. I'll definitely be watching more Shark Tank from now on. But now I think we'll move on to the Q&A section. So this is just the space that the audience has submitted to us, and feel free to like jump in at any time if you have any input as well. Let me know. But the first, these questions can and cannot, may not be directed at a person, but the first question that we have, I think, is more directed to Geert about startups. So how do you establish a revenue or flow when you first opened your business at Farmwall?
A revenue of flow or a flowing revenue?
It says, I'm sure it means like a flow of revenue.
Unfortunately, it wasn't a flow at the start. Yeah, revenue is always a tricky one, because it basically comes from the moment you've actually got a product and a market and a customer. So initially, a startup is very much bootstrapped, meaning your income is coming from yourself or from family and friends. And initially, it's not trying to chase too much revenue, but your revenue is your customer validation. And initially in a startup, we always value that customer validation as a first priority before we chase larger amount of revenue. And yeah, then it's product development and developing your business model. If it's going to be a subscription business model, or you're going to sell products. If you're selling products, absolutely the revenue can come from that straight away. If your channels and your marketing strategy are correct. If you got a more complex business model where the software needs to be developed, and you've got to develop a subscription followers, either B2B or B2C. You often need do you need critical mass, or can you just start signing people up? So I guess from the moment you got a validated product, either in physical form or in a software form, and a validated market, which could be B2B, B2C, or B2E, like if you be business to schools, then yeah, the revenue will come from that.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think that was really insightful, and I hope that the person that answered got more insights on how to do it. But also, again, feel free to jump in at any time. So Sharon and Samir, if you have anything as well regarding this question. So Samir, did you have?
One thing I was just from what Gil was talking about, just triggered a memory. So with the other things that actually made the brand was that one of the first not-for-profits that the company supported when they first started almost 11 years ago, they are still supporting them over the last decade. It's called the Time Foundation. They provide basically, they go out to a lot of the remote islands around Fiji, build ground mount solar systems for schools, so that the school now has 24/7 power. But previously they had generators and diesel and all of that. So the way they kind of entered the market, because they leverage two things. So as a company, we manufacture the actual structure. Off it goes. We need people to put that structure together. So when they reached into the market, we had a few companies that were on board with our program, and they actually gave their time, and we flew them up. When the end users of our product started seeing that, okay, this is the initiative that Clinigy wants to do, and in that environment, when you see all the kids there and you are able to provide them, so that they don't have to read and write over candlelight, or have diesel generators in the background with the pumping out mass amount of CO2. The people who actually went on those programs today are some of our biggest brand ambassadors, and they only use our product across all of their installations, across whether it's residential or commercial. So in a way, our sustainable goal, our corporate social responsibility platform, all of it came together in terms of even, we created followers, sales, everything on a little package. I think that's initially how the company started off, I guess, their revenue stream back when they started 10 years ago.
It's it's definitely so good to see businesses supporting other startup businesses. That's a really great initiative that you guys did at Clinigy as well. But moving on to the next question, it is also within the realm of entrepreneurship. So what is the most difficult thing being an entrepreneur, and how did you overcome that? I think that could be open to all three panelists here today. In your own way, I feel like you're all entrepreneurs. So maybe Sharon? Yeah,
I actually just, I've got this hard copy of the the interviews that I did at the Virtual Lunchroom Season 1, and you can download it from my website if you're interested after. But one of the interviews I did was with Emma Koth, who's the Managing Director of Rocket Seeder, who's Australia's leading seed accelerator for startups, and Geert's very familiar with that program. And I just turned it to the page because Emma shared some insights about the startup mindset, and so the entrepreneurial mindset. So I just happened to have it here. So I just thought maybe I'll share those 5 key points just quickly, which is from her experience dealing like across the board with a lot of different startups, is that you need to be comfortable with failure. So that kind of ability to step into the unknown, to fail and then get back up again, to have that resilience, to adopt a hardworking ethic, no surprises there, to be prepared to listen to different people, but also to be able to pick out what sort of, who you listen to and who you don't listen to. I think that's an important point too. To know what comes next. And I think, you know, Geert speaking about, well, how did they change, you know, when COVID-19 hit? They already knew that they were going to go into, you know, homes at some point. So they kind of had a plan for what comes next. So having things that you can jump to, and then embracing a sense of optimism. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur to start something new, it's having that sense that you can do it and that you want to make a difference. And I think that they sort of 5 points that I captured from speaking with her, and which I can relate to too, and I'm sure others can.
That's amazing. Thank you for that insight. How about you, Geert?
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on, I think, from my perspective. Yeah, resilience and doing what you love, I think, are definitely the key, and one will follow by the other. If you're doing what you love, you'll have more resilience to go through. If you're doing something you believe in and that you're passionate about, and it will definitely help to continue. Another one I would add, yes, resourcefulness. And resources are not always money. So I think sometimes when people start a company and the mindset is there, like, I need funding straight away, funding. But more, the value often comes from people helping you out or people introducing you to people. So like really building your network and asking for help and being able to do what you can with what you got, and heading out to the market with a cardboard box and a stick figure of speech to like, this is what it's going to look like, and really following that lean startup methodology as all elements that can help with succeeding as an entrepreneur, and embracing the journey, I guess, as well. And once you start a journey, there's always an opportunity to stop at any time. It's the keep going and keep opening doors that will eventually give you the answers you're looking for, and will lift you off the ground. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for that insight as well. Did you have anything else to input, Samir, before we move on to our last 2 questions?
Most of what they've already said myself. The only thing I wanted to reiterate from what Geert just mentioned, especially to everyone who's at university right now. I was at university, was making sure that to leverage my network. That is, every single person in my class, whatever unit that I'm doing, is potentially going to join some business tomorrow. And so it's imperative for everybody to collaborate, because you never know where you could partner up tomorrow. I was lucky when I actually did a massive commercial solar farm, not solar farm, but solar project, and almost every stakeholder was from the University of West Australia. And so that all happened because of the network that we had. So I would definitely encourage you to take the words about what Sharon and Geert just mentioned, and leverage your networks. Every As a potential partner tomorrow. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I guess just to restate everything that Sharon and Geert and Samir said, I think I got the 5 points that Sharon noted, was to be comfortable with failure, always be open to hard work, to listen and to pick out who to listen to and who not to listen to also know what comes afterwards and be prepared for the future, as well as embracing optimism. So 5 amazing points shared from Sharon and her podcast. And we also have more than time for 2 questions. So sorry, that was on my bad. So the next question that we're moving towards is, how are you keeping your businesses sustainable, especially during the current circumstances, especially COVID-19? We're in this pandemic at the moment. So how are we continuously keeping our business sustainable? I think we can have Samir start off this time.
Yeah, sure. Well, as a manufacturer, even though we are founded in Melbourne, when you're making mechanical parts, the go-to cliche is to manufacture in China. But with our leadership team,
Sorry, Samir, I think you're just frozen. Before Samir's connection comes back, maybe we'll move on to get on your insights about becoming more business sustainable. Hopefully we'll get Samir's connection back soon. Sorry, Geert, I'm sorry, I think you're just muted again.
Yeah, sustainable is a broad topic, of course. There's financial sustainability, there's product sustainability, there's team sustainability. So, but without going too far into those elements, at this stage, a lot of businesses are scaling down or cutting costs to make sure they can meet or like go into hibernation either, or like extend their runways to a certain degree. I think this time is a really great time to seed the seeds for the future, and to really develop new ideas and new concepts. I think it's one of probably the greatest times in a very long time to be innovative and to think about, look at all the problems that are arising from this time, and look for better solutions and better ways on how things can go. I think it's pretty obvious that a lot of our systems are going to have to change, or are changing, and it's like a really good time for companies to reassess their product offering and their service offering, and actually looking at how the world and the markets are changing, and changing their offer towards a better product, but also a better service, a better system that will actually fit in with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and actually redesign their offering towards the future, and redesign their business towards the future. And I think from an environmental sustainability perspective, what I really enjoy about this time is that we're no longer flying as much, and the need for traveling and flying seems to be decreasing, and traveling towards the city, less driving, that there's positive sustainable impacts of this way of working, and yeah, I'm curious to see how other organizations are going to change and grow towards this time, towards sustainability, across different platforms and different departments of their organization.
Yeah, definitely. I think this current pandemic is a real big wake-up call for everyone, just to reassess everything. Definitely great mindset as well, Geert, to just constantly be working on developing your company as well. And I think Samir, you're back. Your internet connection is back. So definitely like touch back on to the points that you were sharing before on how you'll be continuously be sustainable even during today's current circumstance.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just say I'm not a fan of the NBN. Hate those guys right now.
Yep, I think majority of us do.
I'm just thankful for that with the leadership team that diversified our sourcing of product and decided to finally source product locally. Jobs providing our industry with a locally made product, which was highly asked for, and finally we do have an offering, and that's definitely higher COVID period. I mean, I don't say that they've actually had a record month on month, even during this period, and we've had that purely because we've never had a shortage of supply, because we've just turned to our local suppliers. So I guess the key there is sustainable.
For sure, I think that is definitely important to like reach out to our local businesses as well. How about you, Sharon, especially being in the food industry as well? How are you keeping your business sustainable in this current situation?
Yeah, I agree with what Geert said. I guess there's lots of different ways to look at sustainability, but I guess from just a business longevity perspective, I'm very grateful that in September last year we decided to close. We had a clinic in the Sydney CBD that we decided to close and move out of there. Just, I guess, what was that, 6 months just in time. So we had already set up remotely. A lot of our work in terms of our consulting and advising has been done, you know, via email, and you could be anywhere to do it. So we've carried on, and also grateful that we work in the food sector and not travel or tourism, or some of those that have been obviously harder hit, although, you know, the food sector, there is lots of change. But I'm kind of with Geert, and I think that, you know, the good thing out of this period is that we will see lots of innovation, and I'm hopeful that we will come out of it better off, and we find better ways to do things. And, you know, the initiative that I started this virtual lunchroom initiative when COVID first hit. So for myself, in terms of, I guess, looking at innovation and picking up on, I guess, a passion kind of project, it's been really good for me also to look at, well, what comes next, and how can I maybe use this extra time, although we kind of say we've got extra time, but I don't know, do we really? But, you know, creating something new at this time. And so kind of coming out of it with some more ideas and some more connections with people, and a way that I think I can help, I guess, leaders and other organisations, as I said earlier on, to share their stories of change, to look at really how can we inspire a better future and move towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals as our vision, knowing that the food sector has such a big role to play in that. So yeah, I'm hopeful this is a period that will come out of it better off.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, as well as David in the chat, where he said that we've had more and more opportunities now, and COVID-19 has definitely opened a lot more doors for us in sustainability as well. And on that, the next question that kind of ties in with this is how you actually educate your target customers about sustainability, and just being more socially aware about sustainability for those who aren't as aware or know the importance about sustainability. I think I'll direct this first question to Geert.
Oh, yeah. Sharing results, I guess, and showing impact. It's like measuring the outcomes of their purchase and the results they've achieved by purchasing that collectively. So I think what we really learned in our first home program is that where basically like the 90 people that purchased the program and the product rolled together and connected now through a virtual community garden initially run on Facebook, and through weekly live webinars. And I think when you are becoming collective, when you becoming collective customers and collective consumers, I think that's the power of the many. And when you're feeling that you're part of a community and you're actually together achieving larger impact than you can by yourself, I think that's a great way for companies in the future and in the now to start approaching their sales and actually connecting their customers with each other and connecting like-minded people together. Doing that will also allow you to measure the impacts on how they use your product, because it's not only the actual impact of the physical state of your product, but how it's used. And if that has a positive benefit that can be measured and shown back towards your customer and your audience, that can eventually lead to larger sales as well. So yeah, proper measuring, showing the results back to the customer, being transparent, and showing what collectively can be done if this new a more sustainable paradigm and more sustainable mindset is adapted within products.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing that insight as well, Geert. I think for Samir, in terms of like marketing and branding, how would you overcome this situation as well in terms of educating our target customers about sustainability?
Yep. So, for example, I'll give you a lot of people within our industry, obviously in Gippsland area, were heavily affected. And so each individual stakeholder had their own. Instead, what we did is together, a lot of manufacturers collaborate onto singular projects, and so that we can have a much bigger impact. And through the process of doing all of that, we literally use social media. We reached out to various Facebook groups and Instagram feeds, and literally said, were there any or any kind of medical facilities that were severely hit by the bushfires? And if you are, we have a team ready to go right now who can set up a mobile system so that you can get. That's us collaborating with solar panel manufacturers, well, collaborating with Tesla for their batteries, with local electricians and installation companies, inverter companies. So all together, creating the kit, so to say, and then using social channels as our little platforms. And people reached out to us. We within a couple of hours assigned a team that could evaluate which was the, because we designed them to be mobile units. Once for example, we used that there were a couple of there was the Bat and Roo Wildlife Sanctuary. There's the Wombat Sanctuary. All of these sites, once they got power, we could then lift the system and then take it somewhere else, wherever they were needed. So, I mean, today's world, it's all about socials, right? In terms of stuff we can to get our word out there. We do the traditional means of, your EDMs and your newsletters and things. Myself and our team, we have a pulse of every single social channel that we're on, and whenever a customer is in need for something,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so true when you say today's world is all about socials, and I think utilizing social media is such an important platform, especially when working with different projects and with different companies, which is an amazing initiative that you guys are doing at your company. The next question is, I think, directed to Sharon. So regarding greenwashing, as a customer, how do you think we should identify the truly sustainable companies to support? Bit of a tough question.
It is a tough question. Thanks for that one. Well, that can be challenging. So it's, you know, it's about doing, I guess it's digging a little bit more deeper beyond claims and I guess managed marketing materials that go out and really looking at the values of the company and you know, what they're, I guess there's what they're saying, but following through in terms of what they're doing. And you can kind of get a little bit of an idea, I think. I mean, even this project we did looking at the top 100 food and beverage companies, is the way that things are written on the website gives you an idea whether they're making statements versus making commitments to change, and whether they're evaluating and following up on those actions and reporting on those actions. So transparency is, you can get an idea of transparency from that type of thing. It just requires you to do a little bit more work, I guess. And so it depends on how important that is to you as a you know, a conscious consumer. But we are living in a hyper transparent world, and so for businesses it is important to be transparent. And I think people today aren't looking for perfection, and that's one thing that we've kind of got to get over. I work with a lot of marketing people, and Samir is probably not like this at all, but you know, there's kind of often wanting to take things to the, like, you know, obviously we want to promote what's the best thing about our product and appear to be doing really well. And I think that we can really easily pick up exaggerated claims and content and things like that now, and it's actually not as appealing as kind of just saying, look, we're trying our best, we know we can do better, we've made these commitments to change, this is where we're at now, this is the process that we're following, and to sort of, I guess, speak in that kind of real and transparent way. So I think you can kind of get a feel for that often when you're looking at the communications that companies do put out. But it's a good question, and it's not an easy one to answer.
Samir, did you have any other insights coming from your marketing background as well?
Yeah. Well, just in my experiences, when you look at into small size businesses, it's very hard for a business to just suddenly have you know, corporate social responsibility, someone looking at a sustainability statement. Invariably, most of the time, it gets thrown to my person. And I mean, not in all cases, but in some cases, yeah, they could do, they could make their efforts in terms of how do we make, and it's you know, good, which isn't the ideal situation. Yeah, the ideal situation is you want someone in there who is unbiased. For example, let's say a sustainability officer doesn't look at it from if we do this, then we'll get that kind of perspective. Just doing their job from to our community. How can we? How can our business give back to our clients, bring value to the industry, and things like that? How can we be an influence of change in our industry? I think that's some of the key roles that I mean, I at least will follow, but I hope more marketing people follow as well. But yeah, I can say that there are some cases where there's a lot of greenwashing happening, and yeah, but you know, other people within the industry like Sharon who are picking up on these people and calling them.
Can I just add one other thing to that? I think that there's also a difference between sustainability as a business value versus sustainability as a marketing claim. So, you know, that I think you can pick up as well if you look across a company's perhaps product portfolio or you know, commitments and strategies and values. Sustainability as a value is much stronger than, say, sustainability as a marketing claim.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that insight, Sharon. Definitely, I think with the use of social media as well, there are definitely more and more people just calling each other out if they are greenwashing, which is something that's really great that's happening. So I think we'll have our last two questions now. The next question is more so directed to Geert. So as well-established firms have more funds, do you think that startups are disadvantaged when it comes to launching sustainable projects and innovations?
Depends. Like a startup is advantaged because they can move quick, they can make fast decisions, and they're a lot more agile and resourceful compared to large organizations. Like a startup could move and create something within a couple of months, which might take a larger organization much longer to establish, because there's more people that need to approve and validate and sign off on things. Funding wise, yeah, absolutely. Again, if the startup manages to validate the success of the product quicker, they are able to raise funds on the back of that. And actually, corporate larger organizations, they often invest in startups because of that reason, because the startup is quicker and more agile, and by investing in a startup, they often get to where they want to be quicker than if they would have done it themselves. Money is always handy when it comes to making things happen. So I can't really say that's not an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And on that, speaking about like supporting charities and non-for-profit and like the bigger organizations supporting startups and non-for-profits, where should individuals and businesses actually look to find and try to determine which companies they want to support? And this can be open to all three panelists. I think I'm sure you all have great insights for this. So particularly like Samir and Sharon as well.
I might just mention B Corp. It's a great way to get started and purchase products from companies that have a B Corp certification, and yeah, that work towards the development goals as well.
Yeah, definitely. And could you explain B Corp a little bit more to our audience, just in case those who aren't aware of B Corp certification?
B Corp is a certification that basically researches the business from a purposeful perspective and from like an impact perspective towards social and environmental outcomes, as they assess the company from a broader perspective of the values, predominantly on the values that the company has, and how they're lined in. Recently, the B Corp has also lined up or have collaborated with the Sustainable Development Goals, and they're now integrated in the B Corp certification as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. And I'm sure individuals in our audience will certainly be looking for more B Corps to support in future. How about Sharon?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that we can, businesses, you know, I think in the past, corporate social responsibility may have been providing funding to groups or charities, things like that, that then kind of sit in your CSR report or on your website. But I think that a more effective way to do it is, and we see this now, is looking at, well, as a company, what makes sense for me to do. So if I'm making, chocolate, it makes sense for me as a chocolate company to look at, so how can I use the funds that I've got to source cocoa from a more sustainable source, that maybe is going to cost a little bit more, but that's where I'm going to put my money. So how can I work through the food chain and through the suppliers, the workers, to do things and to transform and to change the way we do business to make us more sustainable, and what projects link in with us as a business and support our vision. So we're starting to see that more and more. So I think there's a distinction there between those two approaches, and that it does make sense, for example, for a business to look at the Sustainable Development Goals and say, which ones make sense for us? If we're a fish or seafood company, how can we improve, life below water, is that the wording? Or if we're an agricultural farming company, it's how can we improve biodiversity on the land? What are the projects that fit in with us as a business and make sense for us? And I think that's what then helps to inspire, the team and the workforce and the company, makes sense for the business. And that's really where you can, I guess, leverage the power that you have to really make a difference that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's an amazing insight. And to close it all off, I think we all want to know if any three of the panelists have any advice that you would give to young leaders or current professionals here today on how to adopt a more pro-sustainability mindset in our future ventures. I think, Samir, would you have any advice to give us as leaders, as current professionals, to adopt more pro-sustainability mindset?
Oh, good question. I think it's a personal value system. It's something that within each of us, whether we hold it true or not. It literally dictates my entire life. I personally want to buy an electric vehicle. I think to myself, and for an electric vehicle, I want to make sure that I charge this vehicle from metal sources. So what do I need? I need either an electricity provider that can provide me 100% renewable energy. Can't get that today with most of our providers. What's my next option? Oh, I gotta buy a house. I gotta buy a house. So I'm just saying it's a frame of mind. If I want to eat, if I want to consume food, I want to use products like, for example, the brand called Thank You, so where we know every single product that they make goes to an ethical cause. It's part of your own personal which I'm sure most of the people here have. That's why they're listening in. So just
I think you just got cut off at the last end. Could you just repeat it for your ending statement for the audience to hear?
Just say it again. All I'm saying is that hold your values true and follow it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Samir. Any other advices that you would give, Sharon?
I think that probably a lot of the people on the call already have sustainability mindsets. I think it's staying true to those, as Samir indicated, and understanding that the future is about that link, that profit and purpose, they are inextricably linked, and I guess maintaining that understanding that business really is a lever that we can use to really express some of the human, I guess, things that we're passionate about. So as future leaders, there's a great opportunity to use business as a force for change, and keeping in mind, that idea of, well, if you want to lose weight and someone puts cake in front of you, don't eat the cake, stick to the long-term aim, I think is maybe one thing to keep in mind.
Yep, for sure. And Geert, did you have any other advices, especially coming from your startup side, where you could share for young leaders and current professionals about process sustainability mindset. I think you're just on mute again, sorry.
Keep doing it. A short term, I would say, lead by example. That's the best way to do that. And long term, I think some really powerful exercise to do is closing your eyes for 10 minutes and imagining how you do, imagining the world you want to live in the next 25 years, and then imagining yourself being 65, 70 years old at the end of your career, and asking what you regret, and if there's any alignment there, together with an ambition to be in business and an entrepreneur. I think you'll be able to find ways to become a leader in your field of passion.
For sure. I feel like self-reflection is definitely something that's very powerful. And that will be the last question from this Q&A session. So we did have many more questions, but unfortunately, due to time, we'll have to move on. But before we start sharing screen, I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to take a photo to just commemorate our panel discussion. So can Gloria just let us know when you're ready to take the photo?
Thanks, Selena. So I will be taking a screenshot of us now. So if possible, you can turn on the video. Everyone ready? So I'll count to 3 and take 2 screenshots. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. 1 done. Second one on the way. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Chi, can you start sharing the screen again? That would be amazing. To close off everything. Cool. So perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Especially big thank you to our 3 panelists here today, Sharon, Samir, and Geert, as well as everyone in the audience today submitting questions, and AIESEC alumni who have also helped with finding the panelists for today's sustainability panel discussion. As Samir said, today's world is all about socials. So we also have the socials for all our panelist speakers today. So next slide. So for Sharon, we have her socials, her LinkedIn, her Twitter, and her website. Sharon is also having a book coming out called Eating Together, something definitely to be excited about and to read more on. It's a follow-up from her first book, and I think everyone, if you're interested in knowing more about Sharon, definitely visit her website, and we'll have to wait and see from her book when it comes out. Next, we have Samir. So as the marketing director of Clenergy, he has all his Clinigy websites, and if you're interested in renewable energy and everything that the company does, those are the socials for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as Samir's personal LinkedIn as well. So definitely reach out if you have any further questions that we weren't able to answer. And last but not least, we have Geert. So we have his LinkedIn and Farmwall company page. The page was just launched today. So farmwall.com.au/program. We talked about how we're slowly adapting to COVID by transitioning out of the corporate and more into like the home environment. So definitely check out Geert's program at farmwall.com.au/program, and definitely get in touch to learn a bit more through the website. So again, thank you so much to all the panelists here today, Sharon, Geert, Samir. We could not have done it without you. It was an amazing experience to learn more about sustainability in the different fields of expertise that you are all in. We cannot thank you enough. And now we will also have a poll. So I think Spidey will be launching a poll in the chat. So please, everyone, just let us know what you would like to see next from us. And if you want more of these sustainability panels, hopefully we can hear more from different panelists. And yes, I'd like to thank the panelists